So for a lot of you new Amazon sellers, one of your goals might be to have your own Amazon FBA warehouse.
Damn, that is so cool.
And while that might sound like a worthwhile goal, is it the best option for you to run your Amazon business and get a warehouse? For a lot of you, when you're just starting out with Amazon, you see a ton of different sellers. Both of those sellers are talking about, some of them are all on the prep center side, and then others are, living, breathing, and dying in the warehouse. And there's two different ways that you can run this model long term. For some of you, it's going to make a lot of sense to get your own warehouse. And for a lot of you, if not most of you, it's going to make a lot more sense to use a prep center and not touch any of your products. In this video, we're going to be diving into exactly the pros and cons of getting your own warehouse and is it the right fit for you. So the first thing that you should consider when you're thinking about getting a warehouse is how much time do you have to actually spend in the warehouse? Because if you think about it, you're not going to want to be sitting in a warehouse alone all day if you have other things that you need to be doing, whether you have a job, you're going to school, you're doing something else or another business, regardless of what it is. Do you have the time allotment to spend 3 to 4, if not more, full days inside of your warehouse every day for at least 6 to 12 months to get the ball rolling and build your system out? If you're interested and wanting or on the fence about getting a warehouse, you should ask some of these questions to yourself. One, what does rent look like in your area? I would recommend for sure, if you're thinking about getting a warehouse, make sure you only sign a 6-month or 1-year lease. You probably won't be able to get anything under 1 year, and you're going to want to get as small of a space as you can. Yes, I said as small of a space as you can. The reason being is because if you have too much space, you're actually going to not utilize it to the most of its ability. You're going to be spending more money, and you're going to end up with products that are sitting there because you have the room to do so. If you start out with as small of a space as you can and fill it to the gills, you're going to save a lot of money long term, and it's going to force you to be more efficient with your processes in your warehouse. The next thing that you should consider if you're thinking about getting a warehouse is, what is your budget, or how much can you be spending on this warehouse? Rent is going to depend on where you are, whether you're in the East Coast, the West Coast, the North, the South, regardless, it's going to depend on where you are. I would budget anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month at minimum for a small warehouse space, and probably more if you're in one of the hotter areas like, New York, New Jersey, California, any of those more expensive states, because they tend to not have as small of places that you can get your warehouse to put into, and they're going to end up being more of a dollar per square foot or more price per square foot. So if you're in a hotter area, definitely check out the rents around you and make sure you know what it's really going to cost. But the costs don't just stop there, because if you get this warehouse, do you really want to be sitting in it alone all day? Most likely not, because you're going to want to scale. So now you have employees, you have supplies, you have utility bills, you have internet, you have, shipping in and out of the warehouse, and a ton of different stuff that goes into it. Figure, $300-400 a month just on electricity and gas and AC and stuff like that. You can figure probably, at least at very minimum, $20 an hour for a warehouse manager or something like that, or somebody to be running your warehouse, which that's really on the low end if you want somebody good. And that depends on where you are in the country. Now that you have those costs considered, no matter what, I'm going to say that it's going to cost you roughly $10,000 a month to have your warehouse. Are you producing more than 10,000 units per month in your Amazon FBA business? If the answer is no, it doesn't make sense for you to get a warehouse. The reason being is because if you can go on the flip side and work on a prep center where you could be paying per unit and only use what you need. The difference here is you're either going to be using what you need and what you actually are using and paying for that, or are you going to be paying a fixed rate where the cost will go down if you break the threshold, but if you're nowhere near there, you should not be thinking about getting a warehouse. And then the final thing that you're going to want to consider is the time and what's actually important to you in the business. Prep is not a value adder to the business. You're not putting any more value. It's just something that needs to get done, and it's a repetitive task. So do you really want to be having basically another business where you're managing your Amazon store and you're managing your warehouse to get the products into Amazon for your Amazon store? Now you have to deal with employees calling out. You have to deal with insurance. You have to deal with showing up when carriers come. Or you could be on the flip side and a prep center and you just tell them what's coming. They're going to receive it. They're going to send it out. And then they're going to send you a bill for exactly what you use. This is not going to be cheaper for you. Like if we use that $10,000 a month standpoint, if you're producing 5,000 units a month, which is a healthy and a decent sized Amazon business, you're not going to be saving money by having a warehouse. And the bottom line is your rent is going to be more than what you would just pay to a prep center. And then the more expenses that you add on in there add up to more. So for a lot of you, it's actually going to make a ton more sense financially to use a prep center rather than a warehouse, especially depending on what situation you're at in terms of scaling your Amazon store. And then additionally, take into the fact of the matter that it's going to also be a huge time investment because you're going to have to be at that warehouse, build that warehouse system, manage those employees, where you could just pay for what you use into a system that already works. It's going to cost you a slight premium, but it's going to end up being cheaper long term if you're not at that point yet. And if you have no desire to be in a warehouse all day, don't get one. These are some of the mistakes I made when I was thinking about getting my first warehouse space, because I didn't think about the fact that I could do the same exact thing I was doing with a prep center and not have to deal with all the employees, the bills, the payroll, the this, the that, and I could have just been paying for what I use and not having to deal with any of that and just spend my time on what's actually making money for my Amazon FBA business, which is sourcing. So I hope this helps you take into account, the money factor, the time factor, your goals, and making that right decision on whether or not you should get an Amazon FBA warehouse. Obviously, if you're scaling way past those numbers that we were talking about and you have 20, 30, 40,000 units a month, which is crazy numbers, then you're going to need a warehouse because you're going to be paying way too much in a prep center. You could probably get it done for 50% of what it would cost a prep center. But I'm going to assume that the majority of you guys are not producing that type of numbers, not producing that type of volume, and you're really on the fence about these things. Taking in those fixed expenses mean that if you don't produce a lot of numbers one month because you can't buy, your sources dried up, maybe your account got suspended, those fixed costs still matter, and a lot of those leases are personally guaranteed. So even though your business is screwed and you might even have to, end your business, you still are on the hook for that lease. My lease is personally guaranteed too. So those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're trying to make this decision. It might seem scary and it might seem like something you really want to get your own space, but make sure that it actually makes sense for growing your business and following your goals long term before you jump and make some huge expense into your business that you really didn't need. So if you have any more questions about Amazon FBA, warehousing, or specifically anything Amazon A through Z, make sure you click the link down below and join our free Discord server. You'll have access to 7-figure and 6-figure sellers where they will answer questions like this. And also there's a ton of in-depth information about how you can scale your Amazon FBA business for the long term. That's it for this video. Thank you for your business.